Now, I bet you thought, perhaps, that we had forgotten or that we were lost somewhere in the choppy technical seas of audio issues. Hardly.
I was napping.
No, yeah. We just want to take a quick little power nap before we dove on and started talking about, well, your questions, actually. This is ThursdAGE. And, ThursdAGE is a program. We've been doing this thing for like almost 3 years now. I am your disembodied host, Disembodied Troy. And we do this every Thursday. It started way back in the day with a certain Owen Casey Stevens, and we would hang out and do this for an hour every Thursday. We just talk about age-related stuff. Hey, friends, are you just now hearing us? You might have missed my whole preamble, which is fine, honestly. Old man Zandon says something. Oh, he says, OMG, I almost had a heart attack. I completely forgot that I was here waiting. So we come in sometimes and scare the devils out of them. But, all right, today's a big day here of ThursdAGE. Excellent. Ian's here. Let's see, we have, my cousin, Disembodied Voice is here. Duke's here. Old man Zandit's scared to pieces. Brian F. Irving's here. Nice. I do believe that someone on this stream is going to be hanging out with Brian. Mon Frere LeBeau, good to see you as well. And, all right, it is ThursdAGE. We're talking about your questions related to the Fantasy Age 2nd Edition Core Rulebook. Your questions, our answers. Good day to you, Ultimate Gabe. And to get that done, because I'm just a pretty mist, to get that done, we have brought to the party, well, these two cool dudes. Hi, guys. Now,
hello.
I want to preface this by saying hello from Scotland. Nice. Yeah, I want to do a quick geography check. Australia. Okay, great. Bremstar's from Australia. Where else we got, folks? Where are you at on this globe? Let us know. Yeah, things are kind of, you like our kind of, it's more of an underlay this summer. Texas is good. Canada is good. All right. Nice. Keep Northeast England, Germany, Canada, Rio Rico, Arizona.
Nice.
Yeah.
Melbourne, Australia.
Yeah, we got another
Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Hey, nice.
That's my original home state.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Nebraska. I've never been to Nebraska. Just haven't had an occasion.
I want to go to where they filmed that show, Hamish Macbeth, back in the 80s, and retire there. It's where the Gulf Stream hits. They can grow palm trees, but it's still in Scotland.
I see. Yeah. This music is kind of lulling me into a sleep.
The part of Scotland where palm trees grow strikes me as the perfect place.
Indiana. Agreed. Well, I want to thank everybody who's hanging out in chat with your questions. Now, we went ahead and, the thing is, we can't help it. We've got to ask people. Let me see if I can bump you up just a little bit. Malcolm, will you say a thing or two?
Blah, 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 blah.
How's that, friends?
Blah, blah, blah. Nice, Rob.
I'm trying to stay quiet.
TV John.
All right, there we go. TV John. I don't know.
Oh, it's from Hamish Macbeth.
Oh, you sound better. What happened?
Okay. I bumped him up to the max. Okay, good deal, folks. If you should happen to lose audio on Malcolm, just let us know, and I'll bump him up even more.
Yeah, sorry, I have a bad computer for this, and the headset I have was also not great.
Another Pennsylvania.
Nice. All right. Well, we've got like a bingo thing going on here, which I really dig. All right, gentlemen. As I was saying, we've kind of combed the internet for some questions, and so we're kind of prepped, at least spiritually. No. But I know that chat will have some questions as well, and I like this. I'll tear myself away from my setting book for the ACA just for you folks. Well, Rain's talking about the Age Creators Alliance. I don't want to sidetrack us, but I will say exciting things on the horizon. That's all I'll say. And the horizon's very close. Okay, so first things first. Let's do. So, Ian, you are newer to the project.
Yes.
Yeah, and so you took over when our friend Owen had to step away.
Mm-hmm.
And now, Malcolm, you've been working on this project and supporting Owen for a little bit longer, right?
Yeah. I did. I wrote a bunch of the chapters and helped out through the development process. I do have an answer to a bunch of questions that people have. There are many different questions, but the answer is the same. All of these questions are variations of why didn't you include the thing I liked from the last edition?
Mm-hmm.
Answer to all of these is we did not want to make a 400 plus page book. That would be too expensive for anyone to buy.
Well, we probably wanted to, but we couldn't.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's...
Well, I mean, yes, if we really wanted to make an inaccessible version of
sure, a giant,
of our flagship fantasy RPG.
Right. Yeah. A tome as tall as
So I know I know that there are some specializations and things like that people, from the companion, there are some ancestry options from the companion that didn't make it, and it's not because we necessarily thought they sucked, or they're no longer canonical, which, given the Stranger Shore setting, would be difficult to accomplish. It would be difficult to make something non-canonical in that setting.
Because it can be anything.
Yeah. What it comes down to is that we had space considerations, right? It's the same reason that we were limited in the amount of stuff we could add. There were some things that we thought were really important to do, and one of them was to really get the bones of the system refined and down. There are a couple of things that have come up in the kind of evolution of the system, and also the evolution of how we design in it and how we look at different aspects of it that have changed. And one of those, for example, to give you one example, is that advanced tests have become a little more robust. And because advanced tests become more robust, we had to take a look and really nail down what the types of tests are. So that's why we have simple tests, for example, right? Because there are a bunch of tests that don't use stunt points, right? So we put them in a common bucket. And it's the same with sort of making it clear that degrees of success are not the same as stunt points, right? They only become stunt points when, they don't ever become stunt points.
Right.
The same die generates them, right?
Yes.
So these are the kind of things that we needed to just firmly set down. And that took up space that, we couldn't use for, your favorite ancestry from the Fantasy Age companion, your specific favorite ancestry. I looked it up and then I went, and it's not going in.
Yeah.
Because that person likes it.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, we do a little research. We check to see who likes it, and then we rate that against how nice you've been and any sort of baked goods or cheeses that you may have provided.
It has to be a little casual cruelty for.
Oh yeah.
For as part of every development process.
That's really the foundation of ThursdAGE. But go ahead, Ian.
I was just I wasn't unfortunately involved as much, in the early, middle, or even middle late stages of the development of Fantasy Age, but there were even at the very end when I came in, we had to make choices on do we want to put this in or not, and I mean, it's great to put everything in there, but it's one of the hardest parts of being a designer, honestly, is figuring out what to cut. I mean, ask any movie editor too, but the great thing is it does not, and we did not change Fantasy Age enough. I don't think that anything that's in the companion or whatever, maybe it needs a little tweak or whatever, but you can easily bring, that stuff forward, and use it with second edition. So.
Absolutely. So in short, so there are definitely going to be answers and some that you may not love, but the bottom line is it's the toolbox that you've expected it to be. It is the facilitator of great round the table experiences, and sharing your thoughts about sort of what you feel like might be missing. We'll get there. We'll get to the point where we can say, okay, that's not there because this was a design decision that was made, and but this is all part of that dialogue and discussion. So we're gonna put a bow on that, and then go ahead.
Oh, I see a question coming. Why is there no martial artist specialization?
We're gonna do this with a little bit of order, and we're gonna yeah.
Can't just say random stuff.
Well, you absolutely can say random stuff. Just ignore these ne'er-do-wells in chat.
I'm gonna pout into my tea then.
I love it. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do first. I want to thank our friends over at the Age RPG Facebook group. We lurk. We like hanging out there and seeing what's going on. And I'm going to drop a link there. We had folks that, wow, that's a real gnarly URL. I'm sure that isn't right, but there you go. Either it will take you to the page or it will take you to my bank account. In which case, have at it. We've had a few questions on here. I know the two of you checked these out. One of the questions was, what's the timeline for release of a GM screen? I know that's not really for you gents. It's coming. We're working on it. It is part of the deal, and we'll get. Go ahead.
I can add to that.
Sure.
It's in layout. I mean, it's going to be coming along pretty quick after the core book. I can't give a date. I don't. Again, that's not my purview. But I just want to say it's basically done. So
that's right. Yeah. Awesome. And layout can there's some back and forth. Layout isn't just sort of it goes to a place and then it comes back all laid out. There's a process there. So so expect that and more information on that soon. All right. So there is a question about I've gotten this a couple times about the Blooded and the Orion not included in the Ancestries.
That is the didn't want to make a 400-page book.
Okay, which is good. So
answer.
But it is not that they're gone,
right?
But yeah,
you want to use it.
Yeah, you want to. You may want to make some changes to bring them in line with how Ancestries have been revised in the new edition. But that's pretty simple.
Yeah,
well. There's
awesome.
Very little you actually.
Right on. Okay, so how about this one? Do we want to talk about the Envoy for a bit?
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's get that one.
Yeah, let's get that one. So the question that I've got here from Paul Shaw, by the way, Paul Shaw, congratulations. We're going to give you a little Fantasy Age prize pack that I will work with you to get so we don't double up and give you something you already have. But I'll reach out to you, look for my IM in your DMs. The question is, why does the Envoy have fighting as a primary attribute, but the weapon groups they get are all accuracy based?
So first of all, the weapons they get are not all accuracy based, but I do feel that we probably could stand to have another fighting based weapon or two in there.
Yeah. So look for some tweaks.
Yeah. Like one of the things is there were some ways in which, unfortunately, we had to go right up to the wire on integrating the book. The other thing is to get into what primary and secondary are kind of for in the game.
Mm-hmm.
While primary does skew towards the things that are most important to your character, in mechanical terms, they're not actually that much more important than secondary abilities, right? And that's because what they do is they regulate which ability advancement you can take. Right? That's what they're for. So, yeah, Envoy has fighting as a primary, and certainly there are roles for fighty envoys. Right? And we have some specializations that work with them, too. But the Envoy isn't supposed to be like finesse or fighting oriented, because in Fantasy Age, right, we do have the kind of light fighter, heavy fighter divide, right? That's encapsulated in accuracy and fighting, right? And Envoy isn't really meant to fit into either of those definitively. However, yes, we could stand to add a couple more fighting-based weapon options, especially heavy blades, because our iconic is carrying a sword.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Our friend Old Man Zanditz, since we scared the bejesus out of him, I want to bring this up, which is, do we have a sort of a guide or some kind of a change list that sort of reflects what those? Yeah, go for it.
Not as of yet, but we've been talking about a number of things for like just sort of free PDF downloads, and that could well end up on that list.
The introduction does include there is a high-level summary of what the big changes are. Like, most of the changes are, look this thing up and replace the rule you had with this rule, right? Or tweak this rule slightly, right?
So, Old Man Zanditz, my question for you, friend, is: are you feeling like that introductory information gives you what you need? Because if it doesn't, then we'll take note of it, because it's in a couple places, and I think it's important to know. But also, I just want to be sure that we're capturing your question well. I want to also, so let's see, could you explain why the flirt social stunt was removed? My party and I had so much fun with it.
Generally speaking, that was to reduce the number of stunts that you would have to face immediately, and also to give them.
Hey, Malcolm, you got to move your finger off the mic.
Sorry.
There you go. Sorry.
Sorry, I wasn't on the mic. I was actually looking at the PDF, but I'll stop doing that.
I see. Okay.
I was cheating. Yeah. So we've reduced the number of stunts and given some of them looser frameworks, so as to demand a little less out of what you have to role play. Because one of the prime rules for stunts, and this is another example of a basic age thing we really wanted to get down in the book, is that stunts have to fit within a narrative context. They have to tell a story that makes sense, right? So, I'm not going to judge you if you want to flirt with all the monsters that come to the yard. But but it's kind of better as a number of different social stunts that can be sort of framed that way, right? There's actually sort of a general thing too, where we've looked a bit at how social force in the game works too, to make sure that it kind of happens in a more flexible and comfortable context, right? Because there's just something inherently, that's right, Ray. But there's just a certain something where, like, I use my social power to make you love me, like, doesn't come off very well. And also, it's just not how dramatic romance works, right? Like, this is I have my rant about this, but I'll try and keep it very short. If we look at what happens in, like, romantic comedies, it's always about building something. It's never about, like, the Lake House doesn't end with, like, Keanu Reeves or whatever forcing. I don't even remember the cast of that. Anyway, you're not forcing people to love you. You're creating something. And also, love can mean a lot of things, and we kind of wanted the social system to reflect that in some ways globally.
Nice. I've got. Ian, did you want to add to that, or you?
No, I think that pretty much covered it. He had my thoughts on it too, as far as just the feel of it.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Yeah. So here's a question that we've got from Ian Christian Schur that says, can you talk a little bit about the envoys and how you made them distinct from the rogues? And then also asked a question about what's up with the Dazzle being worse than Guard Up. So why don't we go with the how the Envoy is distinct from the Rogues?
Do you want to hit that one, Malcolm?
Sure.
Since you're on the initial design more.
Yeah.
I have some thoughts, but
couple of things. First of all, they're not really slotted toward a particular combative style because it's anchored in their social stuff. They have, particularly some of their class stunts are quite potent in terms of like laying conditions on people and kind of changing their capabilities and things like that. All of the classes have cool stunts, right? But with the Envoy, we got to really kind of dig into the niche better. As for Dazzle, the answer for that is that we forgot to revise the action type.
So that'll be fixed.
So
simple as that.
Yeah. I'm glad
we were actually talking about that one in particular.
Yes. I would recommend it's a free that you can use once a round.
But there will be a change in the PDF, and
there will be a formal change.
Yep. And you'll be updated. We'll make sure everybody's got the new.
Yeah. I just want to add about the Envoy is it is a class that takes some consideration. Like it's not a class that if you don't do some research on it and really look into what it can do, it's not a class to take lightly, because it has so much potential and so many possibilities, but it also requires some effort, I think, on the part of the player to. Yeah. Unlike a warrior, it's like, okay, I go in, I bang, 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 smash things.
It's funny, isn't it? I would either suggest an Envoy to someone who like is very comfortable gaming with natural language, has been role playing for a while, or someone who was brand new, but basically extroverted. Because the great thing about new people in role playing games is they don't bring any assumptions with them.
Yep.
So they kind of look at things at face value and they go, "I'm the guy who talks a lot. Cool." Right? Because outside of the role-playing game dimension, where the ability to shed blood is tops, people like the power to talk persuasively, and we wanted to bring a little bit of that normal way of thinking about things.
I love it. I got to tell you, looking at the Envoy, and as much as we've talked about it, and I mean, it is made for the community builders and the connectors and the communicators. And I just was really happy to kind of see that. And it was
just
good,
happy because you have a class that fits you.
Temp, I see you, friend. We'll get to your question, but we're not going to get to it until a little bit later. So, Disembodied Voice brings something up that says there's some confusion in the talent prerequisites. In Mage Hunter, it says accuracy and willpower 2, and in Berserker, it says strength 2, willpower 2. Does comma mean or?
No, it means that we should have removed that and.
There you go, friend. We will address that as well, and you will see that it's the on Troy after all. It is indeed. I like that. Let's see a question here about. Okay, this is interesting. There is a few questions about how the Fantasy Age Second Edition Core Rulebook may impact or change or shift or introduce new elements or ideas into any of the other Age games. Or does it set a precedent, or is there any kind of like, for instance, Derek says, is there a crossover guide between the different Age games would be welcome addition, showing which systems cross games and like the churn and peril and all of that kind of stuff. Is that something that we would look at or consider? Little game guide of sorts.
I think we can talk about it, but the main thing with Age is that it's not. The games are designed to be very interoperable, but it's not a generic system. In that we iterate the system for each individual thing. So and that was one thing I think a lot of people were thinking. oh, with modern age isn't going to use classes anymore, right?
Right.
But in fantasy age, right? Fantasy age is about traditional niche class-based role-playing in a way that modern age isn't. So there are different rules, including character classes. In terms of specific things, I do think it would be cool because we do have some common rules that are reskinned for certain things. One of the things that Ian brought in 3 rules from other age games that are notable in particular. Fortune as an option from the Expanse, and also Peril, which has been called the Churn in the Expanse. It's called Complications in Modern Age, in the Modern Age Companion. And we have Daring, which started out life as Serendipity in the Modern Age Companion, right? So we have these kind of dramatic narrative control systems that are common to a bunch of age games that we have a particular iteration of here. And while we can say this is just like this, because in Fantasy Age it is, when we get into, we might have, for example, Blue Rose might have an iteration of the Churn someday, the Churn Peril someday, that is all about, the shadow, right? All right, about the shadow, it's called the Rising Shadow in Blue Rose when they put it in Envoys to the Mount. So if that re-enters the core, it might have different challenges at different degrees, right? I think snuck is a word.
I think snuck is a word. Yeah.
Right. So, and similarly, there is a system for horror and getting shaken by horror in Fantasy Age, but it is not the same as the system in Modern Age.
I mean, it resembles it, but not.
It resembles it very slightly.
Yeah.
And it is not the same as the system in Cthulhu Awakens.
Right.
Each of those games actually has a completely separate system because they are meeting different needs, right? Fantasy Age, the system is really designed for one and done. Is this thing scaring the crap out of me or not?
Yeah.
And if it is, I run away. And maybe other bad things happen. Modern Age has a system that, in retrospect, I would say is overly elaborate, that handles a bunch of things because it's a toolkit. When Cthulhu Awakens has an alienation system that is really designed for slow burn stuff in a way that Fantasy Age's system is. So certainly we can talk about things that are in common, but we can't have faith in the fact that one widget that I use in one place is going to be the same everywhere it gets used. Another example is bonds. So we have relationships as an option. In the new edition of Fantasy Age. But, it's not necessarily going to work the same as if we look at Fantasy Age Trojan War. They're not going to, relationships and divine bonds are similar, but they're not the same, right? In how they're mechanically implemented. So the answer is yes, but with exceptions, I guess. It would be handy to have that crossover resource. But mainly, if you have 2 books, you can just pick what you want mostly, and it's not going to break. And if it does break, you'll know that immediately, and you shouldn't feel locked into it.
I think that's one of the great things about Age in general, where these systems are designed specifically for, or retooled for each different version. If you like something from Modern Age, the way that, if you like the way the horror works better in Cthulhu Awakens, if you want to run a very horror oriented game, you could lift, the alienation stuff from Cthulhu Awakens and put it in the Fantasy Age. So that's one of the nice things. I mean, they are different. And I was thinking more that Fantasy Age is a little bit similar to Cthulhu Awakens, not Modern Age, but yeah.
So here's a question. We've got somebody Temp asking, just how different is Breakwater Bay compared to High Falls Swale? And then there's a question in here about any of the, of course, immediately people get this inspiring tome and they want all of the adventures, they want all of the supplements, they want all of that stuff, things to be retooled and rolled out. Like, for instance, there's a question about Fantasy Age conversions for the Freeport modules.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What are the thoughts on that?
Some things are in the works there, so there will be some things. But one thing to keep in mind is that pretty much any previously published module is going for Fantasy Age works just fine with second edition, with maybe minor tinkering necessary.
Yeah,
I really mean minor. It's almost all going to work just fine. So there's almost no reason to redo a previous adventure, because we'd be making so few changes to it, you wouldn't even notice.
Yeah, all the basic stat line stuff is going to be like 90% the same.
The stat blocks are basically the same.
For Freeport in particular, a lot of that is like there's some discussions about Freeport, but Freeport is also, Chris, it's like one of the company's big signature settings, and it's Chris Pramus's setting.
It's his baby. Yeah.
So so a lot of it is going to depend on how we decide to how Chris would like to Freeport kind of expressed it in the new.
Right now the theme park design is in blueprinting, and we're trying to work out the land purchase, and we're going to create a big Freeport park here in Washington State.
What I can say is that we are making a big attempt for a lot of adventure support, and also currently a lot of the adventures that are being put out would sort of work together. Either you could link them together very easily, and that's being taken into consideration, like the adventure that's in the core rulebook and the adventure that's going to be in the GM's toolkit, Game Master screen, and the 5-part adventure series all kind of mesh together, and you could insert one into another and that sort of thing. And then we're going all in on the Stranger Shores setting as well, and you're going to see a lot for that in the nearish future as well. So you'll have other locations other than Casa Isle,
and Freeport exists in that setting.
Yes, it's even mentioned in specifically at
Nice.
some of the adventures.
So here's a question we've got. It's about the, let's see, this is from Miranda Hunt. Miranda says, overall, I think the changes are positive. I'm curious why the strength requirements remain so high for some weapons, and why some weapons that are functionally the same have a different stat recs and damage outputs.
Well, Miranda, I saw your question on Facebook. And I almost
as did I.
And yes, I know that, in fact, a great sword does not take strength 3 in real life. As someone who also swings a great sword around. However, there are a couple of considerations. One thing I do know about Miranda, by the way, is that she is a historical martial arts instructor, just like me. So we may get a little obscure here. All right.
That's okay. That's what we're here for. We're getting in the weeds.
To a certain extent, we kind of have to accept that the medievalisms that we use in fantasy games are like iterated broken telephone from the earliest games. And then from there, they actually come from a book that's over 100 years old that Gary Gygax looked at. By someone named Charles Foulkes. I hope that came out right. But some of the terms are not the terms that are used nowadays. They're not the terms used historically, and they're filled with a lot of mistakes. But those mistakes have been carried forward over the ages, which is why, for example, people think of a broadsword as the kind of sword Conan uses, and not a basket-hilted sword from like the 18th century, things like that. So to a certain extent, we have to kind of accept that and go with that, because that's what people know. Now, to get to why we have these attribute requirements in particular, the main reason is to make sure that the weapon, that you are optimizing yourself for that weapon, right? And if you have a strength of 3, then you have, optimized yourself to do big damage with fighting-based attacks, right? So you are the perfect fit for that weapon, right? So that's kind of the little push we have. And that's kind of how talents and specializations work a little too, right? It's not that you must be this tall to get on the ride. It's just that we think you'll enjoy the ride better if you're prepared.
Yeah.
And last but not least, you should look at the weapon entries as semi-generalized. Like, there are a couple of, like, for example, I know, Miranda, you were talking about, well, aren't a glaive and a halberd basically similar? Well, for our purposes, a glaive is a stick with a swordy bit at the end, and a halberd is a stick with an axey bit at the end. Right? And they, right? Or I added a little thing, because Miranda, as a historical martial arts practitioner, you know that the poleaxe is an amazing weapon, and is often actually a hammer. I did say that was a type of halberd, right? So, whereas a glaive might be like a guandao or something like that, a bunch of things. So we kind of are generalizing things. So you really brought me into the weeds with this one because I'm vulnerable to overly elaborate answers. And this is one
I think it's great, my friend. I love it.
I'm glad to help. Yeah, but yes, we do know over here that in real life, it doesn't take that much strength to use a sword. Swords aren't that heavy, except for rapiers that you have to hold in one hand, which makes them very annoying. But in fiction, rapiers are dainty little weapons used by roguish types.
Right.
So
or
that's
witty types. On this particular program, we all have a rapier wit. We're very proud of it. But I want to jump into another discussion here real fast. Lots of folks are like, oh, since the pandemic, my collection, my home collection around the table has, I've moved more digital. And the good news is, and we get that for sure because we have too. It is the reality of things. We have a couple things going on. Over at Roll20, there are 2 bundles on sale.
Mm-hmm.
There's the Breakwater bundle, and then there is it didn't switch. And then the other bundle is the Call to Adventure bundle. Let's start with the Breakwater bundle. It has Fantasy Age Bestiary, Fantasy Age Core Token Pack, and Set Sail for Breakwater Bay, which is now here's the good deal. For about 30 days, I think, and that is starting today. There's a temporary discount. You can grab those over on Roll20 for $21.99.
If you don't mind, Troy,
yeah,
I'm going to coattail on that and actually do something I'm not supposed to do and answer a question, which is the adventure in the Game Master's Toolkit, Game Master screen. I don't know for sure that it's going to be available separately, but I expect we'll be doing something for VTT at least, with that adventure available separately. As a VTT thing. So because we're getting all the stuff up there.
We sure are.
And one of the things one of the first books we're putting out is Adversaries and Encounters, which is going to be, big book of monsters. So you have tons of monster tokens. Some of them are repeats. But that'll also give you, 2 different types of of maybe the same monster, but there's a lot of new stuff in there too.
There sure is
a bunch of some demons.
Yes,
yeah,
and just lots of new, even just like completely original stuff that we're just making up for the world.
Exactly.
So, and then it also has in the encounters part of it is going to be a whole bunch of encounters featuring monsters from the core book and this book, which will all have maps for that encounter. So you'll get a bunch of maps, a bunch of monsters. It'll be cool. So yeah, we're going to be doing a lot of VTT support. Thank you, Jonesy.
Absolutely. So, speaking of the other bundle, it's the Call to Adventure bundle. The list price $31.94. It's actually $24.99, and look what it's got in it. It's got so much stuff.
Yep.
A lot of good stuff for you, and it will scratch your VTT itch. And we will be dropping a link in chat so you can get those. I think that it's a pretty darn good bundle deal. Check them out, pick them up, and then have some fun. And Foundry will, yes, thank you, Duke. Duke is getting to this question before it's asked, but Foundry's on its way. We're working on it. We've got a small but mighty team of VTT folks. They are doing their level best. And Dwayne says, thank you so much for the Roll20 support. It's my only realistic way of playing the game from my location in the desert. Yeah. Well, we're happy that we can provide a little digital oasis for you out there in the desert. Let's see. Well, this is interesting. So there's a couple questions about other age products. I want to talk about that a little bit towards the latter part of our program. There is a question. Matthew asked a question. Did you tackle that? I wasn't sure. This is with respect to fighting weapons and ignoring historical confusions. A two-handed mace is a 2D6 plus 3 with a min strength 3, but two-handed spear is 2d6 plus 3 with a min strength 1.
Well, sometimes it's not all about balance. It's about flavor. That's one. And also, generally, spears are a better focus.
Okay. Matthew, hopefully that answers your question. Flavor and focus, the two Fs of the game. Let's see.
Oh, there's a third.
What's the third?
I can't say.
I like it. Let's see. I want to get back to the Facebook page and make sure. I think that we've tackled most of the stuff that's in there. Now we've given I know that you may have a lot of other questions, folks. You may be watching this and thinking, "Oh, you didn't quite answer the question I was looking for." So this is the purpose of ThursdAGE, and all you need to do is hang on that question and join us for our next discussion. And you can ask it if we're doing a ThursdAGE. You can ask it. You can ask it at any time, and we may not have the answer straight away, but we'll get it and get it back to you. Or you can send a note to letsplay@greenronin.com, and we will promptly ignore you there as well. So that being said, there's a question that folks asked. It was actually one of the earliest questions that we got, and it was about Modern Age 2nd Edition.
Modern Age 2nd Edition.
That's
Well, I have thought of it, but at the same time, right now, Modern Age is pretty much like close to being, close to having everything out that I want for it. There's still powers, and it's written and it's mostly laid out, but we just need to find a slot for it. And there are some adventures, but once we get into it, I guess the question for me is whether I want to do, or whether it's a good idea to do Modern Age where there's no like preset genre or anything like that. In which case, what that does is that means that I have to like generate a whole bunch of specific genre support.
Yeah.
Or whether to use Modern Age for as the basis to make a lot of setting-focused games, where I tweak the engine to be just right for that kind of game. So the question is, do I do a Modern Age 2nd Edition, or do I do more things like Cthulhu Awakens?
Right.
And there have been some demands for some games, and those games take up time, and they take up printing space. So science fiction game is one that is often a space operatic science fiction game is one that's often mentioned as a thing that people want. So is a cyberpunk style game, right? We released a short supplement for that for Modern Age. But certainly we've talked about doing a full cyberpunk RPG cyberpunk genre RPG, and we've talked about doing a cyberpunk fantasy fusion RPG. And that's one thing that I was very reluctant to do because there's a game called Shadowrun that does a great job of it. And I don't want to do a copy of Shadowrun because what would be the point of that?
Right. I had a really cool idea.
Yeah, but I got a really good idea.
It is.
So if we have time for it, I did come up with a unique premise, and I would like to explore that. I have to admit, like, I'm more excited about doing the specific games than doing Modern Age right now. But if there is a huge demand for Modern Age, right, I guess a lot of it will depend on what's happening with the existing line going forward, right? But certainly there are some innovations we've made with Age, even since Fantasy Age, that that would be fun to do. There are a bunch of variations of bonds that we did in Cthulhu Awakens. I would really like to integrate interludes from the Expanse into a game. I would really like a formal kind of capability. All right, so I would like kind of a formal capability regeneration cycle that uses interludes, that uses fortune aggressively, and also has standardized threat from a number of sources, right? So that a challenge test will work the same as churn/complication/peril will work the same as, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
Right. Well, so that involves some design heavy lifting.
Now, listen, you're about ready to open the door on a whole another hour's worth of conversation.
Yeah.
But this is good. Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot to be. There's a lot to consider.
I can see you're kindling the creative fires of the chat. They're starting to like, well, you could do this or you could do that. So we should devote an entire program to that. I think that's important stuff.
Also, I want the John Wick license real bad.
Oh yeah, right.
Honestly, know anyone? Let us know.
Yeah, if you were friends with them,
anyone, let us know. I think Age is perfect for that.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it is perfect.
The way stunts work is
perfect fit. Yeah. So there is there's a couple questions that we have, and I want to grab them because we were just a couple minutes late. But
sure.
So we'll give those back to you for free. Everybody gets an extra minute or two on the end of their ThursdAGE today. There is a question about, we've got a brawling v accuracy question. We've also got a starting talents and alchemical explosives for mages. Then there's real quick, I just want to say, and then we've got a question about some HP bloat.
Yes,
from
okay. Yeah. I did want to address that.
Yes. So I just kind of want to give you
so Fantasy Age has a reputation for hit point bloat, right? And that people have too many hit points or health, because we call it health in Age, or fortune, and it takes forever to get it down. Now, here's where we get into the weeds, because even though that is the most identifiable face of the problem, that is not the problem. The problem is that combat has too much regularity and it takes too long, right? So regularity means that because of the way we kind of have results go on a curve with 3d6, if you hit someone, you're pretty likely to be able to keep hitting them, right? Combat taking too long is a function of the relationship, not just having too much health, but the relationship between health and damage. So what we did is we constructed a model attack and compared it to the typical health of different characters and creatures across the different threat tiers, which corresponded to specific ability levels, right? And then we discovered like what 1d6 damage would be the equivalent of if you were, say, a dire threat creature, right? How much more damage would be the same proportion of the enemy's health as 1d6, right? So we did a bunch of damage averages and we plugged them in and saw that, so that we could, if we wanted to, have a total treadmill experience. Now, a treadmill experience is that I defeat an orc, and then the next orc who comes, and I gain a level, and then the next orc who comes is comparatively just as tough because the orc is tougher to match my toughness. So that's running on a treadmill. I'm not really my character is not really advancing, right? My character just has bigger numbers to boast about, but the play experience hasn't really changed, right? So consequently, what we did is we designed a little lag into damage progression versus health progression, to put a bit of actual advantage to having more health back into the system. And then after we got all of those figures, we converted them into embedded bonuses in the classes, because each class can now do more damage within their purview. And we also adjusted the thresholds for some other things. Hazards do more damage now, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a little thing that's in the book. It's in that hazard table, but hazards do more damage now. And we are a bit more freewheeling about how much damage we let things do to you.
Yep.
Right.
Gotcha.
So instead of saying everybody has half as much health as they used to, what we do now is we just make it easier to knock them down. And we also create a bit more variability in how combat works by having bigger bonuses to defense, by class or by maneuver and things like that, so that sometimes if you want to avoid being hit, you can actually succeed at that, because before taking the defense bonus from a major action was not necessarily a great deal. So that's what we've done.
All right. Okay, hopefully that addresses that for you, friends. And again, remember, there's a lot more conversation to be had. I do want to touch on this one thing here that looks to me like, I'm not sure. Duke says Scouting Master Ability talks about the Warrior class stunt, Seize the Initiative, but that stunt is in the basic combat stunt list and decidedly not listed under the Warrior stunts later in Chapter 6.
Then you
Is that an
send
oversight?
that to us as an erratum.
Yep.
Yeah.
That sounds like something we got to fix.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's what it sounded like. I do want to thank, there's a couple folks, actually quite a few, that were part of our early preview program that took a look and did a lot of editing and shared some thoughts about some stuff. Thank you, folks. The by and large, we've got little things that we need to fix before we do run that print run, but really very happy with the feedback folks are giving. Folks seem like, there's a couple folks that are like, I've got to sort of rethink a thing or two. But ultimately, great launch. You two should be very proud of what we've got out there in the world. And I certainly do appreciate developers taking time to sit down and talk to folks directly about stuff. That can be a little daunting and a little hair-raising. And you both did and do on a regular basis a very good job of connecting and sharing and not being afraid to kind of get into the weeds. And I appreciate that. 30 days, Lauren. Lauren says, how long are those discounts running over on Roll20? About 30 days. Rebstar says, thank you for the amazing system and the stream. You're welcome on both counts. Thank you, everybody that's been hanging out in the chat. Gentlemen, do you have anything else you'd like to add? Malcolm, you have your hand up, and both of you, go for it.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that credit where credit is due. Owen was the person who pushed for having the Envoy and pushed for class stunts. And he added a lot of innovative stuff. Particularly in the characters, and also, of course, a lot of the stuff comes from the work of Jack Norris when he was developer, right?
Yeah.
Because he produced the companion, and a lot of core work in the Age system that really we're taking up. And of course, there's Chris Pramis, who designed Age right at the beginning. So it's a teamwork.
Yep.
Absolutely. And of course, our best well wishes go out to our beloved pal and friend Owen Casey Stevens. He's in there getting it done and doing the stuff, and we're going to be sharing some additional ways that we can help him out with some of his medical bills and all of that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But send some love his way for sure. In the interim, Ian, did you have something you wanted to add as well? I want to make sure I don't skip you.
I wanted to give a little Expanse plug here. Just to, since I'm still doing that too. April 2nd, we have the Game Jam game that's going to be a live stream. You're organizing that, Troy, so you know more about it than I do. But myself, Steve Kenson, and Chris Pramis are all going to be playing. So I actually get to play the Expanse. So
that's right. You know who else is going to be playing? We invited some.
You are too.
I'm not going to be playing. No.
Okay.
But we'll have we have our friends over at Braxis Precipice. John, he's going to be the GM. We've decided to flip the tables here. And then you're going to have Merrick as well from Skyhammer Press, and you are, and then maybe another individual, perhaps the person who actually won, and they'll be playing potentially. You know, there's a language barrier, but they're very excited about it. We'll see how that works. There you are. So that's on April 2nd. We're going to kick that off. I believe it's at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, right here in this very same spot. Really excited to see the tables kind of turned there. That'll be fun.
I'm just excited about that. And I just wanted to second pretty much everything Malcolm said. That that there was a lot of love, a lot of energy, a lot of good people came together to work on this. And I feel honored.
Steve worked on it too. But he works on everything, so I just forget.
Steve is everywhere. Yeah.
And I just feel honored to be coming in, to be able to help out here and take things forward. So
absolutely. So remember, ThursdAGE comes to you almost every single Thursday, 2 p.m. Pacific, right here. We also do Mutants and Masterminds Monday. We've got Alex Thomas, Steve Kenson, the Ubiquitous, and myself, and we talk about Mutants and Masterminds. It's a blast. It's a lot of fun. Much as this is fun, that is fun as well. You can come hang out with us, talk about superhero stuff for the Mutants and Masterminds line, and we just have a good time. I think that is that. Friends, thank you again for spending your time with us. Remember, if you've got a thought, an idea, or maybe you're going to be putting something together for the Age Creators Alliance, you can... Gerbo, sorry. Any more time left, or should I watch the? Yeah, you're gonna watch it. You're gonna want to watch the on demand. But send a note to let's play at greenronin.com. And as much as I joke about ignoring you, I would never. But look forward to hearing any of your thoughts or ideas. And I think that calls it, my friends. Have a great rest of your week and a wonderful weekend. And of course, we will see you on Monday. Bye-bye.